Hi. Just wanted to give us a little something to think about before we get started here. If Christians thought about the message that Jesus Christ shared, they would be offended. Let's talk about that.
Welcome. I'm Shane.
I'm Sylvia.
And this is Gospel XL. We are learning and retelling the good news of God's story and the implications that it has on our lives and the lives of our spiritual community. So we get to come here and kind of share with you what's going on every week, Friday night at 7 o'clock. And so here we are. We're glad you've joined us. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to put in, that's why we're doing this a Facebook Live event. Feel free to put those in the comment section. We'll be reading those. We have some diligent staff behind the camera here in the lower room that write us little messages that you guys put up there, questions that you ask. We really want this to be interactive. This isn't coming from the standpoint of we're experts, because we're not. We're just flailing ourselves forward together on this journey, and we're having a great time with it. And we thought, maybe some of you might want to learn some of this stuff too. So, okay, Sylvia,
right.
So how's your week? Anything we
Good.
need to know about? Good week? Bad week?
Good week. I verified that my chicken coop doesn't leak, and I'm ready for some hens.
I can't even.
Yep.
I can't even. Like chicken coops.
Yep.
My friend Sylvia grows chickens. Now, what I want you to ask in the comments are, where are last year's chickens? What? No? I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to divulge that information on air.
They migrated.
To a cold place. So how does that work? I don't know.
Okay.
Anywho,
So we're ready.
we are ready.
How about yours?
It was a busy week. It was a good week. I am loving spring being here now.
For sure.
Loving hearing the birds, and I'm in a good headspace with this. Finally, winter seems to have let go and moved on somewhere else. I'm sorry for whoever got winter, but we're done with it, and so she can now move in with you, or he. It doesn't have to be a she. Could be a he. So, all right. So let's talk about what's tonight's topic. What do you got for us?
Yeah. So, well, kind of like what I mentioned, that if we really listen to what Jesus' message was, a lot of people, Christians, would be offended by it. And
Why so? Why do you say that?
we're pretty good at looking at Christianity as if it is things to do and things not to do. I mean, there are definitely
Okay.
the do's and the don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
And we get pretty caught up in that. And Jesus said some interesting things about how that looks in his eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little about, or tell us a little bit about your story with that do's and don'ts. Like what do you, for those that maybe haven't journeyed in the Christian realm, what kind of things are you talking about for do's and don'ts? And how did that play out in your Christian journey?
Okay, so do's and don'ts are
For what you
kinds
had.
of things.
Yeah, for what you had,
Yeah.
because that may not be the same story with other Christians.
Yes.
May not be my story, but for you, what was it like?
So it was everything from how do you treat other people to how do you spend your money, how do you speak, how do you dress, how you spend your time, the need to do Bible study, prayer.
Okay. Yep.
There's a lot of shoulds, and then there's a lot of should nots. And the should nots are you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't dance, you don't sit too close,
There is room for the Holy
all
Spirit here, I
kinds
noticed.
of stuff.
Yep. You don't
Yeah.
swear.
There you go. Not that either.
Yep. Definitely not that.
Yeah. So,
But
a
you
lot
mentioned some other things that I don't
Yeah.
think anyone would have a hard time with. Be nice to people.
Sure.
You mentioned that. Be conscious of how you're spending your time and your money. Those
Sure.
those
They're
aren't
good
tho-
things.
those aren't bad things. So why would Jesus' message be offensive to Christians if they thought about it? If that's what Christians were doing, are we talking about the Christians that don't do anything and are kind of nominal Christians? They show up on church, every other Easter. Like, what are you talking about here?
I'm talking about diehards.
Ah,
Diehard Christians,
okay.
of which I have been one.
They are hard to die. What? Go ahead. Keep going.
Pretty much. Hard to die to self. I'll just kind of share with you where all of that took me. And that was, Garrett says hi.
Oh. Hey, Garrett. What up, G Money?
So where it took me personally was into a lot of anxiety. Because well, I wasn't enough of anything. And I had a lot of stuff I needed to fix. And I was very self-absorbed in this because I needed to get myself up to par.
Okay.
That's-
What does that mean? Like, what does that look like for you when you said you need to get yourself up to par?
Well, things that weren't right in my life, that attitudes that needed to change, or
Okay.
things that needed to be more in line that weren't in line. We're having some technical difficulties.
We're just gonna keep rolling, and if you
Yeah,
can't hear me, that's okay.
or-
Don't worry
or
about it.
me. So we'll just keep going.
One of us, I think, is working,
Yes.
so we'll just talk like
So,
this.
okay. That's awkward.
Yeah. Only a little bit. Only if you make it awkward, really.
Okay. So anyway, for me it was a lot of anxiety because I wasn't matching up to my own expectations or what expectations I thought that
Okay.
God had.
Sure.
And so what happened with me, I have someone that I consider a spiritual mentor. And I would share all kinds of these long emails. I'm sure you got just
He probably kept them and
I
printed them
don't
off
know,
and put
I
them in a
hope
book.
not.
This is Sylvia. Right here. Case study.
just long emails, and he wouldn't say a whole lot back. And then I'm a Sabbatarian.
Which is
which
similar to a
means-
vegetarian, only she eats.
No.
No? Oh.
No.
Okay.
Means
what
that
that
I observe Sabbath from Friday night to Saturday night,
Okay.
and which comes with a whole bunch of rules.
Okay.
But
Sounds like fantastic good times.
yep. So he would send me an email on Friday night that wouldn't say a whole lot about all the stuff that I had just downloaded onto him.
Okay.
But he would say, for the next 24 hours, allow Jesus' finished work to be enough.
Okay.
Rest in Jesus' finished work. And I don't know how many times he told me that, but enough times that I began to tell myself that. I can take a break for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to keep trying to fix this. I don't have to keep trying to work through this. I am allowed a break. And I can
Okay.
have a break because Jesus already finished the work. If he had just told me, don't worry about it,
Yeah.
that would have been one more thing that I needed to do. That's all it would have
Okay.
been. So
There
I
might
needed,
be others of you out there that are like that. Raise your hand right now. It's
I
all
had
anonymous.
to have
No,
a
no, no.
reason. You know, if you're going to tell me not to worry about it, it can't just be, now don't do this.
Yeah.
But he didn't even tell me not to worry. He just said, allow Jesus' finished work to be enough. Rest in Jesus' finished work.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was not the message of Christianity that I had taken from years of Christianity. Because the message that I had taken from it was, do this, don't do that, add this on, and now that.
So
And-
so talk to us about in your mind what was behind the should and the have to and the need to, the do this and the don't do that. What's at the root of that? Why should you do this? Why do you have to have your devotions? Why was that there? If what you're
so
because where we're going with
enough.
this. Okay. Yeah.
Jesus was enough to save me, and then I had to keep myself that way. Or even improve on what he had done.
Oh. So he's like an amateur. Like he's an amateur Messiah. He's almost got it, right? Right?
That's terrible.
That would be offensive.
That is offensive to say, oh my goodness, I was living in my life as though Jesus was not enough.
Okay.
That was not his message.
So then, so let's talk about if there are things that, I don't know how to put this. I mean, earlier in the week, in the teaser, you talked about the things that Christians don't have to do. And now you're saying, hey, Jesus is enough, so we don't have to do these. But if we didn't do these things, wouldn't that be equally offensive to Jesus? Like, hey, I call you by name, but look at you out there not doing what I'm asking you to do.
Well, let's read some Bible verses.
Oh, has it come to that?
Yep.
I guess we should read some Bible verses for
If
this.
we're going to base our lives on what Jesus has said,
Okay.
then let's do it.
Okay, so what do you got?
Okay, so
If you're going to base it on what Jesus said, you need to go there
I'm going to
first.
start there. Yep. Matthew 11. I'll find it.
I'm going to let you keep going.
Matthew 11, 28 through 30. So, I've got it in the Message. Matthew 11. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and I'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. That's pretty welcoming.
Yeah, it is. That doesn't come across as a list of shoulds. Doesn't come across as a list of things you need to do to kind of be a part of.
Yeah.
And there are a couple things that that I want to point out if we're going to talk about Jesus. One of the things is I believe that Christians would be offended if they really listened to his message, and I base that off of the fact that the religious elite of Jesus' day were offended by Jesus' message.
And I don't think we're significantly different.
We're not that much different. Human nature isn't that much different. But you don't get beaten and accused and crucified for being Mr. Rogers. So if you have this kind of mamby-pamby, Jesus was just nice to people, people that believe, I can believe in, I think Jesus was just a really nice guy who has some good things to say. You're way off base, because people that are really nice and just have good things to say don't get crucified. Dalai Lama is really nice, has some really great things to say. No one's out asking for his head that I know of. Maybe I don't know enough about what's going on. But so that's one of the first things that I think about when we talk about this idea that his teachings would actually be offensive to Christians. So if we take that, the way the religious elite reacted to what he was saying and put it to today, we have a really hard time not adding things to what he has done. Because he said, come to me, it's free, it's light, it's how does he put it?
You'll learn to live freely and lightly.
Yeah, that's yes, but. We want to add those yes, but.
Yes, but you need to.
Exactly. Yes, but you need to do this. Yeah. Do you have your devotions? Do you read your Bible? Do you go to church? Do you all of these things, this checklist of things that once you mark that off, okay, now you're in. Now, okay, you're one of us now. But that was never Jesus' message. His message was asking those that we're burnt out in religion, that we're beat down, that we're tired of the list, that never met, that we're never able to measure up. He said, come and be a part of me.
Yeah.
I love the Matthew chapter 5, the beginning of Matthew chapter 5, which for some reason we call it the Beatitudes. Blessed are, and we think of those things as, well, those are characteristics you have to be in God's kingdom. So you have to, you have to mourn, you have to be, poor in spirit, persecuted, those kind of things. I don't know if that's what Jesus' intent was. I think that it might have been, or I propose that it might have been, he was just calling out those people that already felt that way and letting them know that there's a place for you in the kingdom. For those of you that are broken, for those of you that are mourning, for those of you that are meek, for those of you that hunger and thirst, there's a place for you here, and it doesn't have to do with all of these lists that you have to do.
But what about being nice?
Well, what do you have to say about being nice?
Well, let me see if, I'm in the right.
You in the right place?
I'm in the right place. Yep. We try, I think, a lot of times to develop in ourselves this good character.
Okay, yep.
When God has said, I will put my spirit in you, and these things that you desire are a fruit of having the spirit in you. So rather than us saying, I want to be like that Jesus person, I'm going to concentrate on being more gentle.
Sure, yep.
There's nothing wrong with being gentle. There's nothing wrong with being forgiving. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. But the problem comes when we believe that that's something that we can muster up and then go put on display.
Or that we have to muster up.
Yeah, not only that we can, but that's what you need to do.
You have to do that to be a good Christian. These are the things you have to do.
So you will, with God's Spirit living in you, begin to become more gentle, more meek, more forgiving, kind. You're going to be all those things, but it's because of, it's a gift from, it's God working in you. Okay. Not you trying to do what he said. I mean, really, if you told me that you were going to, I don't know, do something for me, and then I went and did it for myself, that's kind of an insult to you. Well, maybe I didn't think you could do it right. Or maybe,
Or if I went, so I go to your house Friday afternoon and I clean your house. And then I'm done, house is clean, and you come home and start cleaning the house. Kind of like that?
It'd be like that.
It'd be kind of like...
I'm not going to ask you if that's happened.
I'm not going to say if it has either, because if you didn't notice, then something might not be right.
I know no one was at my house cleaning for me today. I'm really sure of that. We had some other verses that we wanted to share.
All right, real quick, what do you got?
Okay. Ezekiel 36, 24 through 28. For here's what I'm going to do, and this is
God
in
speaking.
Quotes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, this is God speaking.
I'm going to take you out of these countries, gather you from all over, and bring you back to your own land. I'll pour pure water over you and scrub you clean. I'll give you a new heart, put a new spirit in you. I'll remove the stone heart from your body and replace it with a heart that's God-willed, not self-willed. I'll put my spirit in you and make it possible for you to do what I tell you and live by my commands. You'll be my people, I will be your God. So that's
This is something
God.
that all of those things, this is God doing. God is doing it.
Yeah.
So let's talk real quick about
Okay.
these things that these commands that God has. And if you know much about the Bible and kind of follow through the story arc, there's 4 covenants, 4 basic agreements, holy agreements between God and his people. The first one is with Noah, when he makes a covenant that, hey, I'm not going to destroy the earth anymore, and I give you the
Here's your sign.
here's the shine, here's the not the shine, the sign.
Sign.
Here's the sign, here's the rainbow. That was the first covenant. The second covenant, you could say, was with Abraham, and with circumcision and all that, and God saying, okay, here, I am going to bless the world through you. I mean, that was the promise. That was the covenant, was about the promise. It wasn't about the act of circumcision.
No, in fact, if we can go there, I could.
I'm about to feel uncomfortable right now.
Yeah. So when I heard this, I was like, oh wow. So God had promised through you, Abraham, I'm going to bless the nations, and your descendants are going to be like the stars. Abraham had no children, so he went to his handmaiden or whatever
His
they
wife's
call it,
slave. Yep.
and through her had a son. And God came and said, you tried to do in your own way what I promised to do for you. You got to cut something off of there. So that you remember this promise is
so every
not
time you look down in the
about
morning,
you.
you're going to know, oh yeah, it's not about me.
It's not about me.
It's not about me. I have never heard that before, and I'm not sure about the theology, but I think it makes for a great story. So let me finish.
So go back.
Let me finish this real quick. Okay, so that was the covenant that God made. Hey,
Yes.
I'm going to do these things,
Yep.
even if Abraham decided to mess it up in the middle. We had some corrective surgery. The third covenant, you could say, was the holy agreement and promise that God made with Israel, and that was the Ten Commandments and all the laws and all of those things that came with that, with Mount Sinai and Moses. Maybe you've heard some of this story. But if you look at the story and all the things that were involved in that covenant, basically it was God inviting his people to role play what he was going to be doing. He said from the very beginning, this is a shadow of what I'm going to be doing. These things you're going to be doing because I want you to know that this is my plan and this is what I'm doing, but let me give you something to be able to role play what I'm going to be doing. And then Jesus came as the final covenant, or the new covenant, which we call it in Christianity, and did exactly what all the rest of it said. I'm not going to destroy things anymore. I didn't come to destroy. I came to bless. I came to fulfill. I came to make a way for all the sin to be taken care of and eradicated. I came to bring you back into relationship. I came to do this. And I forget where, in Philippians, at the beginning of Philippians, it talks about how he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. This idea of God starting this and God finishing this, and my role is simply as a recipient. But the question goes, I'm sure some people may have this question that, okay, well, why are there so many things you're supposed to do as a Christian? And I want to point out something that we were dialoguing about earlier, and that is, you will not find in the Bible, I can't think of a place in the Bible where it talks about developing a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's something Christianity uses all the time, that little phrase of having a relationship with Jesus Christ. You're not going to find that mandated in Scripture, because it's assumed, it's not something that is supposed to be mandated out. It's assumed that you have a relationship. It uses relationship language, assuming that you're already in that relationship. When he uses words like Father and Abba or Daddy, when he talks about that kind of language, beloved and lover and those kind of things,
It's already relational.
it's already there, and it's out of that then we act. So when you find these things in New Testament and Old of lists that say, hey, this is how you should be living as a Christian, that's a result of that relationship that I already have
And him working
in Christ.
us.
Yeah.
Abide in me and I in you.
And we talked about Jesus's 2 commandments. What were those 2?
Love God and love your neighbor. And what I mentioned is you can't simultaneously do something out of love and obligation. love produces freedom, and you're free to or free not to.
Yeah.
You may choose to, but you won't be doing something because you have to.
Yeah.
That's not love. That's something entirely different. So.
Yeah. So it's not that Jesus was dumbing this down when he said, okay, I know we tried with all these commandments and you guys really couldn't hang, you couldn't do it. So let me just give you 2, okay? Because you're a little slow. So the first one is love God, okay? And the second one is love the people around you. Instead, he said, I have come to fulfill the law, not to replace it, not to take it away, but to fulfill it. He's in those 2 commands, he's telling us how we're going to be able to live this way in these kingdom values that God has, that God gave us. He's saying, these are the values that I have as a kingdom. I want you to have these certain values because that's what I have. That's what I created. And he says we do it by love, by loving God, by loving other people. It's going to naturally come out of that. So we're not fighting against behaviors and actions that reflect kingdom values. That's not what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say, you shouldn't be nice to your neighbor, or you shouldn't, be faithful to your spouse, or you go ahead and, it's okay to lie and cheat and steal. And we're not saying that at all. We're not fighting against these values. What we're fighting against is the idea that Christ did this much, and now it's my turn to do the rest.
You got to at least try your hardest.
Yeah. Fail miserably and journal about it later. Am I the only one who's done that? But you should at least try your hardest because, it's the least you can do. He did all this. You should at least do the... Yeah, exactly.
And this is a totally different conversation. That's the way I have experienced it, is that it's gone from a very self-focused to a different, just totally different conversation.
Yeah.
It's not a smaller list.
No.
It's just a different conversation.
Yeah. And we can ramble on about that quite a bit. And I want to be cognizant of the time.
So let's go through.
So we talked, we've been talking about what you don't have to do. And we did that on purpose because we want to introduce some things that we have learned, and we're going to talk about this resource next week, but some things that we have learned, some other things that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
So,
all right, here they are.
They're called the 4 Gs, and we're going to talk about this.
And we're just going to introduce them, not really going to explain anything about them.
No splaining, just splashing.
No splaining.
Just splashing. Go.
God is great, so I don't have to be in control.
Okay.
God is glorious, so I don't have to fear others. God is good, so I don't have to look elsewhere for my satisfaction. And God is gracious, so I don't have to prove myself, to others, or to God. Those are good.
Those are good
things you do not have to do.
Yeah. So let's talk about the so what.
Okay.
Why is this important? Why is this important to you? What's the so what? Who cares for you?
So what? Who cares for me is there's two things. I can rest in Jesus, and that's massive. The other so what? Who cares is I have a reason to listen for people's stories, to hear where they're hurting, and I have some good news for them. So I have a new reason, a new approach to why would I even want to tell someone about Jesus? It's not that I'm trying to get them to believe like me, but I've got some good news.
Yeah.
I have some good news.
That's right. And you're not coming to them with, hey, if only you would this list of things, then, Jesus would make your life better.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's not it at all.
Nope.
My so what, who cares, is that I believe that Christians can be the most loving, fun, and free people that anybody knows. And I know we're not supposed to say this word on this show, but I think Christians should be. She doesn't like the word should. Should. I said it correctly.
Thank you.
The Christians should be like that.
Not
I
because
would-
they have to
No,
be.
no. I believe that would be best if that was the definition of the Christians that other people have in their lives, the other friends they have in their lives, that when they think of them, they would think of, man, they're really fun people. They're really loving people. They're really free. Like I would almost say they can
They're
be
not
reckless.
burdened.
Yeah, they can,
Yeah.
hey, it's all right. Not that they don't care, because Christians also can be very passionate about life and about issues and so I'm not saying, whatever happens, happens. But I do believe that there should be, there can be a freedom and love and just a fun place inside them, even when there's, crazy stuff going on in the world. And I would hope that if you know Christians in your life somewhere, that's kind of how you describe them. I don't think that Jesus had crowds and crowds of people around him just because he told great stories that no one ever understood. Because they were always asking him afterwards,
What did you mean by that?
I don't get that. What were you talking about? What?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. He didn't have all these children mobbing him to the point where the adults were like, hey, back off.
Right.
Puh, Tommy, back off. If he was just about lists and things that you needed to do. He had some kind of life in him that drew people, some kind of peace, some kind of love that drew
Yeah.
people to Jesus. That even, the outcasts of society, or those that were at the highest edge, the highest tier of society, they all were drawn to him for some reason.
Yeah.
So I want that to be said about me. So, hey, we
Very
have eaten up 35 minutes of your time. We really appreciate that you've come here. We have a resource that
It's an old,
that is a really
oldie
old
but
one.
goodie.
That is a
And
really
it
old
is
one.
an old one. It's the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And an interesting read. It is fictitious, but such good
But there's some
thoughts.
some good points.
Screw Tape is the demon. He's a demon.
I guess he's the junior demon.
Wormwood is the junior.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Wormwood's the junior.
And the other guy is the senior demon.
So he's giving him advice.
Okay, his apprentice,
Yes. Yeah.
basically. Okay.
Yep. So it's very interesting. If you've never read it, I'd encourage you to. It gets your brain thinking on different ways. So
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Have a good week.
So we'll see you next Friday,
Mm-hmm.
7 p.m. Central Time. Tell your kids, your friends, your mom.
And your enemies.
And your enemies too. And your enemies too. If you have questions that you did not get a chance to give us, please throw them in the comments. We will we'll read them. Or if you have other topics you'd like us to talk about, we'll think about it. So have a great evening. Thanks so much for joining us.